The Keltari scouts stood in the pale light of a dying sun, their towering silhouettes gleaming with metallic arrogance. Their laughter was sharp and echoing, a sound like shattering glass that rippled across the valley floor. They had conquered a dozen worlds, subjugated empires, and dismantled fleets that spanned star systems. To them, Earth was a backwater, a primitive rock filled with desperate creatures clinging to relics of warfare long forgotten by the stars. Their plasma rifles hummed with restrained power. Their armor shimmered with adaptive shielding, and in the center of it all knelt a human soldier, bound and bruised but unbroken. His name was Sergeant Elias Ward, and though his body trembled from exhaustion, his eyes, steady, defiant, never left the alien commander before him. The commander loomed over him, mandibles twitching with cruel amusement, one clawed hand gripping the butt of a captured human rifle. It lifted the weapon high, displaying it like a child's toy for the gathered scouts to see. This, it hissed through a translator's crackle, is the pride of humanity's warriors. A stick that spits fire. How quaint! The scouts erupted in harsh guttural laughter. The rifle clanged against the stone when the alien tossed it aside, as though it were nothing but debris. Elias flinched at the sound, not from fear but from rage he forced himself to bury. He had carried that rifle through jungles and wastelands. It was more than a tool, it was a promise, a reminder of every comrade who had fallen beside him. The commander bent lower, studying him with an alien's mock curiosity. "Do you know what fascinates us about your kind?" it asked. "You continue to resist, even when resistance is meaningless. It is admirable, in a pathetic sort of way." Elias stayed silent. The air around them was thin, sharp, tasting faintly of ozone from alien generators. The scent of burnt metal and dust mixed with the faint iron tang of his own blood. Silence had power, and he intended to wield it. The commander's tone darkened. "Your silence will not save you." Human, but Elias finally spoke. His voice cracked and low, every word deliberate. "It's not meant to," he said. "It's meant to remind you that you haven't won yet." The alien tilted its head, confused for a fraction of a second before laughing again, an ugly metallic rasp. The surrounding scouts joined in, their armor lights flickering like fireflies. Elias let them laugh. He'd heard the same sound before, on Earth, when the skies first burned. The Keltari had come without warning, tearing through orbital defenses, landing in waves. They had called it a demonstration, a pacification mission. In 3 days, the great cities had fallen. In 1 week, Earth was declared conquered. But the humans who survived did not bow. They hid in forests, mountains, ruins, wherever shadows could protect them. And from those shadows, they learned to strike back. Now Elias knelt in the heart of an alien outpost, serving as proof that humanity could be captured, humiliated, broken. That was the Keltari message. But somewhere beyond these cliffs, he knew others were watching. Somewhere out there in the cold air above the valley, a scope was aimed. A promise was waiting to be fulfilled. He didn't need to see the sniper. He knew who it was. They had fought together through endless nights on dying battlefields. The sniper, Callan Reyes, quiet, patient, lethal. Elias remembered his words before the mission. "If they take you, I'll be your shadow. I'll be the silence between their breaths." That was enough. It was all the hope Elias needed. The commander motioned for a guard to bring forward another human prisoner, a younger man barely out of training. He was dragged across the dirt, his face pale with terror. The alien's claw pressed against the boy's throat. "Perhaps a demonstration," it said, turning to Elias. "Watch and learn the cost of your defiance." The boy gasped, eyes wide, but Elias spoke again, softly, almost to himself. "You should stop talking while you still can." The commander froze, mandibles twitching in irritation. "What did you say?" Elias raised his head, meeting the creature's many eyes with quiet steel. "We don't fight to win," he said. "We fight so someone else gets the chance to." For a heartbeat, nothing moved. The alien's grip tightened, claws pressing into human skin. The scouts drew closer, the circle closing in. And somewhere above, beyond sight or sound, the wind shifted. A breath of cold air rolled down from the mountains. Elias could feel it. The stillness that comes before thunder. before change. The commander sneered, raising its weapon for the final blow. "Then let this be the end of your kind's delusion," it hissed. But before it could strike, Elias smiled, a small, weary, knowing smile. Because he had heard the faintest echo, a sound only he would recognize, the whisper of a bolt sliding into place, the soft click of a rifle ready to fire. The laughter died all at once. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Elias closed his eyes, calm in that instant, as if surrendering not to death but to destiny. The alien hesitated, sensing something, turning slightly toward the mountains. And then the silence shattered. A single gunshot cracked through the thin air, sharp, clean, final. The commander's head snapped back, a mist of blue light scattering where its crest had been. Its body fell, lifeless, heavy, and for the first time the valley was quiet. Elias opened his eyes and whispered to the wind, "Took you long enough, partner?" The scout's laughter had vanished. In its place came fear, and above them, unseen, the shadow kept its promise. The commander's body hit the ground, with a thud that seemed to echo through every armored scout in the yard. For a long, trembling second, no one moved. The air itself felt torn apart by that single rifle crack. The Keltari were not used to silence, only the noise of dominance, of commands and compliance. But now, all that authority had been replaced by confusion. Their commander lay motionless in the dirt, blue light leaking from the wound that had ended him. The scouts exchanged glances, unsure whether to flee or retaliate. They didn't know what had happened. Elias did. He could feel it in his chest like a heartbeat. Somewhere out there, high in the ridgeline, his brother-in-arms had just pulled the trigger. The youngest of the alien scouts broke first. It screeched, raising its plasma weapon toward the surrounding cliffs. Energy bolts lit the air, burning streaks of violet across the horizon. The others joined in, firing blindly into the mountains, their panic spilling into chaos. Alarms blared through the outpost as drones scrambled from their launch ports, the sky filled with shrieks and light. Amid the confusion, Elias surged to his feet, slamming his shoulder into the nearest guard. The alien stumbled backward, and Elias twisted hard, shattering the bonds on his wrists against the creature's armor ridge. Pain seared through his arms, but he ignored it, lunging toward the fallen commander's weapon. He barely managed to grab the plasma rifle when another scout intercepted him, swinging its blade-like arm. The strike missed his head by inches, carving a glowing mark through the dirt. Elias rolled, bringing the rifle up, firing without hesitation. The weapon roared and the alien dropped, armor glowing red from within as its systems failed. Elias had never used alien tech before, but instinct carried him forward, years of combat distilled into raw survival. He took cover behind the commander's corpse as plasma bolts hissed past him. For every alien that advanced, two hesitated, scanning wildly for a sniper they couldn't see. Up in the mountains, Callan Reyes worked with a cold precision that bordered on ritual. His world narrowed to scope, breath, trigger. He was no longer just a man. He was the distance between life and death. He adjusted the rifle slightly. The metallic click drowned beneath the screams of alien engines. Through the scope, he watched Elias fight. He could see the blood on his friend's neck, the bruises, the exhaustion. That was enough to steady his aim. The wind shifted and he fired again. The round traveled unseen, a ghost crossing the void between predator and prey. Another Keltari fell, armor caved in at the chest. The squad panicked. One tried to activate a signal beacon, but before it could raise the device, Reyes sent a third round through its arm. Sparks exploded, and the beacon clattered to the dirt. The sniper's rhythm was relentless. Calculate, exhale, fire. His hands were steady, even as the mountain. Beneath him trembled from orbital thrusters above. Down below, Elias seized the moment. He spotted a younger soldier, barely conscious from earlier beatings, crawling toward a storage crate. Elias sprinted, sliding beside him. "You can walk?" he barked. The boy nodded weakly. Elias ripped open the crate. It was full of captured human gear. Rifles, comms, grenades. Hope surged in his chest. "Then we're not done yet." He tossed the boy a weapon, scanning the perimeter. Each second of delay meant more alien reinforcements closing in. Through the haze, he could see the valley gates, a narrow passage leading to the outer slopes. Freedom was just beyond it. The surviving prisoners began to rally. They were exhausted, wounded, but driven by something greater than fear. Elias shouted orders with the calm authority of a man who'd done this 100 times before. "Stay low. Watch the ridges. Move when I move." The aliens regrouped, their rage replacing uncertainty. Their plasma rifles glowed brighter, humming with lethal energy. Above, Reyes tracked their movement. He knew what Elias was trying to do, and he was going to buy him time. He adjusted his scope again, now targeting the outpost's central power relay. The generator pulsed with energy, wrapped in faint distortion fields. It wasn't an easy shot, it was suicidal, but Reyes had long stopped caring about odds. He steadied his breathing, feeling the trigger like a heartbeat under his finger. His mind went still. He fired. The shot struck home. The generator erupted, releasing a wave of concussive force that threw both alien and human to the ground. Lights across the compound flickered, then died. The defensive shields failed, the alarms went silent. For a single breathtaking moment, the stars above were unfiltered and raw, their cold light spilling into the ruins of the outpost. Elias struggled to his feet, helping the younger soldier up beside him. "That was him," he said softly, awe creeping into his voice. "Reyes did it." The two sprinted for the gates, the surviving humans close behind. The aliens fired wildly, their formation broken, their leadership gone. The humans pushed through the chaos, crossing the yard in bursts of desperate speed, one after another. They vaulted over debris and fallen enemies until Elias reached the transport dock. A half-destroyed shuttle sat there, smoke rising from its hull. He climbed into the cockpit, flipping switches he didn't fully understand, praying the old human engineering inside it still worked. The engines sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. Reyes watched through his scope as the shuttle lifted, shaky but airborne. He could see Elias in the cockpit, the light of fire reflecting in his eyes. The sniper smiled faintly, a rare human moment of peace. Then his comm crackled to life. A voice from command whispered through static, "Orbital strike incoming. Extraction impossible. You need to move now." He didn't move. He just whispered back, "They're out." That's enough. The first plasma barrage hit the far ridge, shaking the mountain beneath him. Snow and stone exploded into the air. He grabbed his rifle, sprinting toward the lower path as another blast lit the sky. The aliens had lost their commander, their pride, and now their control. The battle wasn't over, but the spark had been lit. As Reyes disappeared into the storm of fire and smoke, his last thought was simple, resolute, and human. "You laughed at us. Now you'll learn why we never stop fighting." After the shuttle vanished into the clouds, the valley burned. Orbital fire carved glowing scars into the mountains, and the Keltari fleet roared overhead in furious retreat patterns, unsure whether to annihilate everything or regroup. Callan Reyes ran through smoke and falling ash, lungs burning, legs screaming, but his grip never loosened on the rifle. He moved with instinct alone, sliding into ravines, ducking beneath shattered stone, surviving by the same stubborn will that had kept humanity alive since the first day the stars turned hostile. Hours later, silence returned. The bombardment stopped, not from mercy but confusion. Reyes collapsed beneath a slab of rock, blood seeping from a burn along his shoulder, and waited. When night fell, he crawled free, limping toward a signal flare he had memorized before the mission. He fired it once, then destroyed it, knowing rescue would come or it would not. Either way, he had done his part. The rescue came at dawn. A stealth transport skimmed the valley floor, barely disturbing the ash. Reyes was pulled aboard by gloved hands, his rifle taken last. Treated with the same care as a wounded soldier, he blacked out before the hatch closed. Elias Ward woke 3 days later aboard a human carrier hidden beyond lunar debris. His body ached, but he was alive. Around him, the survivors from the outpost sat in quiet disbelief, staring at walls instead of cages. When Elias learned Reyes had survived, relief nearly broke him. They met in the infirmary without words, clasping forearms, sharing a look heavy with everything they didn't need to say. News of the valley spread fast, not through speeches or propaganda, but through whispered recordings and stolen footage. One rifle shot, one fallen commander, one escape that should have been impossible. Across occupied zones, resistance cells reignited. Old soldiers emerged from hiding. Civilians who had lost everything found a reason to stand again. The Keltari adjusted tactics, deploying thicker armor and heavier patrols, But something essential had shifted. Their laughter was gone. Weeks later, a counteroffensive erupted across 3 systems. Human forces didn't attack head-on. They struck supply lines, communication hubs, command centers. Snipers operated in pairs now, always unseen, always patient. The Keltari learned to fear open ground and quiet moments. Every ridge became a threat. Every shadow carried meaning. Elias returned to the field despite command objections. He fought not with vengeance, but purpose, leading units with a calm shaped by survival. Reyes returned too, quieter than before, his rifle modified but familiar. When asked about the valley, he said little. It was just a shot, he told them. But they knew better. It had been a declaration. The decisive battle came months later, back in the same valley. The Keltari attempted to reclaim it, pouring forces into terrain that now belonged to memory and resolve. Humans waited. When the first alien commander stepped forward, history repeated itself. A single shot echoed through the mountains. The Keltari line broke. By sunset, the fleet withdrew. Not forever, but far enough. The valley stood scarred yet free, wind moving gently through broken stone. Elias stood at the ridgeline beside Reyes, watching the sky clear. "They'll come back," Elias said. Reyes nodded. "Yeah," he replied. "But now they know. The galaxy would record the war in numbers and treaties, but humanity would remember it differently. They would remember the sound of laughter ending, the feel of steel in steady hands, the truth that strength wasn't found in advanced weapons or towering ships, but in the refusal to surrender dignity. One shot hadn't won the war. It had reminded everyone why it could be fought at all. As night fell, Reyes cleaned his rifle by firelight while Elias planned the next move. The stars above were cold and countless, but for the first time since invasion, they didn't feel unreachable. Somewhere out there, the enemy was listening more carefully now. Somewhere, laughter would never come so easily again. And in that quiet understanding, humanity took its next breath, ready for whatever came next. Neither man spoke for a long time. The fire crackled, casting restless shadows that danced across their faces, and the silence felt earned rather than empty. Around them, other soldiers rested, repaired gear or simply stared upward, absorbing the reality of survival. For the first time, defeat was no longer assumed. It was a possibility the enemy now carried instead. Reyes finally looked up, eyes reflecting flame and starlight. "Next time," he said quietly, "they won't be laughing at all." Elias nodded once, the weight of the future settling onto his shoulders without breaking him. Beyond the valley, resistance signals multiplied. Alliances formed and plans sharpened, all guided by the simple knowledge that humanity had proven it could strike back and survive together, always.